So Keith talked to you about the specifics you can do to grow your SEO internally, and I'm going to talk to you about how you can make people help you make that happen. Middle button. Okay. So first, a little bit about myself. Director of Organic Product probably doesn't mean much to most of you, but I lead our global SEO strategy and implementation. In addition, I manage the product, which is our thank you page you see after you take surveys, which is seen by many, many millions of people every day. I've been at SurveyMonkey for about 5.5 years. A couple years ago, or about 3 years ago, I got very into international SEO, and I took that a little too far, and I actually moved to Singapore for about 2 years, where I led our Asia marketing. And this picture of me over here is me at the largest internet company in Southeast Asia, so not including China, which is called Coscos. It's like Quora and Reddit got married. And Coscos, for whatever reason, sounds like toilet in Indonesian, so toilet is their mascot, and all the guests come and sign the toilet and take a picture with it. So Chris started by asking everyone who is in Enterprise SEO. So I have another question I'd like to ask everyone, but the lights here are really bright and I'm going to need your help. So if everyone could please stand up. Everyone.
Oh.
Almost everyone, good. If you report in a marketing org, so if your boss is the director of marketing, CMO, content, something related to marketing, could you please turn to my left, your right? You can move your whole body so we can actually take a poll. If you report to product, chief product officer, director of product, something, anything with the word product, build stuff, turn to my right, your left. The people turning that way, stay that way. Okay. Now, finally, engineers. Anyone reporting to IT, technical engineering. You can turn your back to me. People still facing me are either the CEO of their company or reporting to somewhere different, like legal, HR, consultants. You're here, we won't point you out. Okay, so we have a really good mix of you can all sit down now. Really good mix of where everyone is reporting in their company. So wherever you report to, you still have to work with all three of these different teams. So the challenge here is you need all these teams to work for you. However, you only can work up one reporting line and only have influence over one reporting line. And if those other teams don't work for you, you don't really have anybody to snitch on. Which is why I look at Enterprise SEO as artists. We're not builders, we're not actual doers. We have to make everyone work together. We're taking a beautiful orchestra, a number of musicians, and conducting that all together and making a harmony and a symphony. The UX designer might be the trombone player, and the QA person might be the violinist. They don't sound great alone, but together, that's the harmony. However, my favorite analogy is actually architecture. We're not building a plan or an orchestra or a symphony for one-time use. We're actually building something that's sustainable. All of us are that iconic architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, the man that has built the most or designed the most amazing buildings in America forever. That's us. We're building plans, we're building SEO that probably no one will touch forever. We're designing everything together that it keeps working for the benefit of the entire company. So for those of you that are in-house, you know how much agency and in-house differ. So agencies, they focus very much on the short term, delivering products, delivering slides, delivering recommendations, whereas in-house, we actually have the luxury of sitting down and not doing anything for a really long time. We're planning to plan, and that's okay. You meet your quarterly goals by coming up with plans to plan and making everyone work alongside each other. But more importantly, we have to build relationships. We want to get promoted. We want the share value to go up. We may even not want to be in SEO anymore. So we're going to continue working on those long-term goals. And to do that, we need influence. So there's a couple ways you can get influence. So the first way is you should absolutely be building relationships at work. So there was a developer I worked with, and he was a DJ, a very, very bad DJ. And I listened to all his music, Now, when I made requests for him to update canonical tags, he was doing that for his very close fan. Now, the other way of doing this is by building authority. So my favorite business book I've ever read is this book by Robert Cialdini called Influence. And he has 6 levels of persuasion of how you can get people to do things. This 6th level of persuasion is called authority. Authority is why when a police officer says, sit down and shut up, you sit down and shut up. Authority is why when I have a clicker in my hand and stand on a stage and I made all of you stand up and look different ways, you did it. That authority is what you need at work to make people do things that are not their priority and not part of their job. So, insight for you to tweet, I think this is 140 characters, 280 characters, but we don't get paid to deliver slide decks, we actually need to deliver ROI. So, all of you in enterprises, you probably know someone like this, an SEO engineer. Now, in startups, you can have an SEO engineer, but in an enterprise where there's someone that coordinates on behalf of interviews for recruiters, they're not even the recruiters, they're just the scheduler, you don't need an SEO engineer. This kind of goes together like HR doing sales. So this is your person who knows everything, they don't need you to do anything, they know all about SEO, they've got it covered. When you face these people, you need to demonstrate authority. And this is not just those SEO engineers, these are product people, these are designers. These are the people that come to you and say, can you SEO this for me? I've already SEO'd this, I'm good. We've accomplished SEO, it's all done. These are the people that you need to demonstrate authority to by saying everything that they have read is not necessarily the truth. That they don't know everything and that you are a master and you're an artist and you're a scientist. And you will create value for the company. And you have your job, and you're good at your job, and they're good at their job. And you are a domain expert. Now, my favorite story of how low this bar is this. As I was ramping up to move to Asia, I decided I needed to become an expert in all things Asia. So I learned about Baidu, which is the largest search engine in China. And I read an article on a Chinese website, not in Chinese, in English, that Baidu was expanding from China, where they were based, into Brazil. They were going to start offering their search engine in Portuguese in Brazil. So I decided I can demonstrate expertise, write an article about this happening, and wrote 4 reasons, completely opinion-based, my headline is an opinion, of why Baidu is doing that, why it made a lot of sense. Now, as I started having meetings with people in Asia and deciding where to live and what to do while I was there, I was talking to the head of an agency, and he wanted to pitch me on why Asia was a great place to be. And he said, I don't know if you've heard this, but Baidu has just expanded into Brazil. And here are the reasons why. And he repeated to me everything that I'd written. And it made me realize how much of what's being written is just opinions is becoming facts. And by just challenging what we read and coming up with actual data, we have the ability to become experts. We have the ability to show that things are not really what they think they are, and we can provide value because we know something they don't. So even Google says things that aren't necessarily the truth, and you have the opportunity to test and experiment and provide value. So these are 2 examples of things I did this year where I ran into China and wanted to prove that I had the expertise on this. So the first is we launched surveymonkey.co.uk because we thought that we would get better results in the UK. I thought this might not be the case, and I wanted actual data that we were getting better results. So I did a technical test outside the scope of this presentation, but I was able to get our .com ranking in the UK. And surprisingly, our results from the UK doubled, and there was a massive impact on revenue. So Google recommended this, or Google always recommends if you can afford to do something like this, and here I was seeing something different. Another test we ran is in the interest of being more mobile friendly. Our developers made our navigation JavaScript. Again, Google always says they call it JavaScript. I wanted to test what would happen if we removed some of those elements of JavaScript. Change that to HTML and our crawling doubled. Now when the engineers come to me and they have suggestions on like, we're going to do this in JavaScript, is that okay? I actually have data points to say, well, last time we did it, didn't work out so well. So these are my best practices for testing. I'll just run through a couple of these in the interest of time. Whenever you're doing any testing, involve other people, give credit to other people. It's okay. Everyone knows that you are the person behind this, so you can pretend that they did all the work, and they are doing all the work, even if it is your idea. The other piece I want to call out here is when you do a test, use money as your ROI. So use actual dollars. Don't just say, like, we've got better results, we've got better positions. If you use actual dollars, it's more quantifiable, and you can share it to a wider audience. So melt into the background, and everyone will know that you are the architect behind everything you're doing here. You don't need to be upfront. And when you share, make sure you're giving other people credit. So these are some areas you could test, and I have examples for all these, but again, you can take a picture of the slide or you can get it later on. You can test everything. Everything that you think is a fact, you can build authority by running a test on it and getting actual data behind it. So the one here I'm calling out is a tweet from Google. So John Mueller says they use CCTLD for targeting. And I tested this and found this not to be the case, and actually saved us a lot of money. We stopped using cctld.co.uk and other ones. And it's actually far easier to do it as just a .com. So even if Google says it's true, it may not be true, and you have the opportunity to test and prove that you learned something different. So these are some examples of tests. So I wish that SurveyMonkey had as many public URLs as some of these travel websites. But what these travel websites are doing is they're testing the full funnel. They're testing the rankings, they're testing the clicks, and they're testing the revenue from this. Look how hotels.com says top 10 hotels. And then they have another URL that says save big, and they're using capital letters for big. And then TripAdvisor has a dollar amount. I don't think you can find a hotel in New York for $80, but they're getting you to click through. Same goes with meta descriptions. TripAdvisor is saying based on candid user reviews. Booking.com says good availability. There's not necessarily good availability because they don't know what date you're choosing. But these are things you can test to look for higher click-through rates. So for those of you that are enterprises, hopefully you have a lot of indexed URLs, the ability to rank, and you can track all the way through into revenue. Cross-links is something anybody can do. If you are linking across your website, you can figure out if anchor text matters, if anchor text does not matter. You can know follow links within your site, actually not link and just reference your URL. See if links matter. See if anchor text matters. See if having really long anchor text matters, short anchor text. Broad content is something I test with all the time because SurveyMonkey we have data, so I can build content around anything. Walmart surveys was one of the largest terms within our space after our brand. And I was able to create content that could essentially squat on Walmart's big term. The reason the Walmart survey ranks is such a big term is because every receipt has a survey link on it. Now when people search that, they're finding a piece of content. And that gives me ammunition to suggest we can build other content. And then, I don't know if anybody still uses the Uber app, if you've all gone to Lyft, but I don't think you've ever seen that image in your app of people looking away. So what ASO is in this context, and anybody that is responsible for ASO at your company, is they're looking at the conversion. They're looking at how many people are downloading. So this is another opportunity for you to test and say, if I put this image in my listing, will I get more downloads? Will I get more revenue from the app? So to wrap up here, test on everything. Build your own authority, and you'll have the ability to be successful within your company. You need everyone else's help to do SEO in an enterprise. There are so many moving parts, and you need them to trust you and value what you're suggesting. And just a little pop quiz here. Who knows who built this building in New York? You can call it out. It's the Guggenheim, yes. He didn't really build it. He is the architect behind it. But all of you probably give him credit for building it. So be the architect. Be the person that designs the plans. Let the developers be the developers, and they'll let you be the SEO. Thank you.